It feels really nice to see Mushoku Tensei come back, even though it's only one episode. And I think it's supposed to probably hold us for a good year. So enjoy it while you have it. Or if you can, just kind of piecemeal like certain segments of the episode over the year. But yeah, episode, I don't know what you call it, OVA of Mushoku Tensei, the Eris the Goblin Slayer is the episode, what it's called. Surprisingly, not much goblin slaying and more just about setup, I guess. As I kind of mentioned before, I've never gone into an episode of Mushoku Tensei since probably the middle point of the first season before I realized that no character is wasted. So sure enough, when it opens up with this little silhouette storytelling and talking about some kid that lost their family and they was brought in by this other group, raised up, how he was like super good at magic and praised for it, and then eventually decides that he wants to become an adventurer, I knew this was going to be an important character, and it really does feel, based on the ending of the episode, that, yeah, this guy is going to be important somehow. Unfortunately, it seems like he's going to be obsessed with Rudy, so we'll see how that goes. But obviously, his first love is Eris, and this is the guy that's taken her from him. So obviously, he's going to have some sort of ill will towards Rudy, or at least an interest in who Rudy is, as well as seemingly playing a role in some sort of church issue that's happening, because apparently there's a pope, and the pope likes the demons. There's this new pope, they want to drive out the demons, and assassination attempts. So again, like I said, going into this, I had full expectations this was going to be an Eris episode, and yeah, we got a lot of Eris, and that's great. But I think my only issue that I have with this episode is it wasn't so much about Eris. It wasn't so much in her head, and I for some reason had a lot of expectation that this episode or this story segment was going to be some insights into Eris, because from what I'm understanding, there's a lot of inner dialogue in the original adaptation that is in Eris's head that we never get. So I kind of was hoping from her perspective we might see a little more of that. It was cute to see how much she does respect Rudy and how much she'll defend Rudy in a lot of cases. So we do get that aspect there, which is great as well. But yeah, I think overall it was a great episode, as always. Beautiful music, great setup, great directing, everything. Just again, my downsides are like, this is more about this Pope dude, and that wasn't really too much in Eris's mind. Even still, seeing her going off on her own and just being able to take care of things is always a lot of fun as well. She's obviously grown a lot as a character. She's a very strong character. She doesn't really rely on other people, and I do like to see this, I guess, stark contrast to somebody else. When you have this other kid, Cliff, and his kind of reliance on other people, and going along with Eris, and Eris is kind of like, I don't really need you. I'm fine by myself, and him having a reliance on her, but her not really having a reliance on him. But yeah, to break down the episode, obviously we had the beginning was pretty much the introduction to Cliff, showing that he had this family that was lost, and him being brought in, trained, and then again being praised, giving you a sense that this guy's going to probably be a little bit full of himself, and obviously you do see that when we do have our first encounter with him. This again is obviously in Millis. This is the point in which Rudy is going to go work on his own project, and Eris said that she's going to go goblin slaying, which again, from Rudy's perspective, he does eventually go to meet Paul, and they have their little outing. But this is during that period of time. It's giving you a sense, while it's showing Eris walking around being happy, that obviously things aren't really going well in this town. It seems to put a lot of emphasis on the discrimination against the demons. And specifically, it shows about how they have higher tolls. And additionally, later it shows one orc or something getting kicked out of a shop, which you assume is because he's an orc. So it's already kind of setting up some tension there. It's really quickly in this episode establishing there's an issue here, the demons versus the human kind of thing, and that seems to be, at least from what our perspective is, very prevalent. This eventually leads to Eris going to the adventure shop because she sees a sign looking for goblin slayers, and they offer a certain amount per left ear of these goblins, and that's when she overhears Cliff arguing with some adventurers, and it seems like Cliff is full of himself again. It seems like he thinks he's better than everybody else, and that he's doing them a favor by grouping with them. And I love this thing because Eris comes in and says, stop being like kids, and then they decide to leave. And he's mad that he helped him. And it's so great because we had like this, a little of a parallel here. You could see the first scene where Rudy first met Eris and said something, and she got super hyper angry and punched him in the face. Same exact here. He said something like, don't butt in, you're ugly. Same look, same punch. But then I think Cliff got, 2 Yeah, 2 punches. So, but yeah, he apologizes, wants to group up with her, so they go out goblin slaying. And this is where we're getting a lot of this kind of comparison happening, where Cliff thinks he's the greatest thing ever, and Eris knows somebody that can walk the walk while he's talking the talk, which is Rudy. So there's a lot of comparisons happening here where Cliff's trying to, basically claim that he's a great, amazing person, where at the same time Eris is like, no, you're not really, because I know somebody that's really, really incredible, and you're nowhere near his level. This leads to them going out and doing some actual goblin slaying, which, yes, this entire episode's labeled this, so we would think we'd have some goblin slaying. But yeah, Cliff is trying to use his magic and pretty much just crisps everything, so that pretty much makes everything they're doing kind of worthless, because she needs the ears for them. So she's gonna leave. He kind of ropes. It was funny because it kind of gives this indication that as much as he's trying to manipulate Eris just kind of doesn't care. She's like, whatever, I don't want to get involved. I don't want to do anything with you. But here was like the first time he actually kind of started figuring her out. And I think this will come into play later, but he's obviously somebody who wants what he wants, and he will get what he wants because of seemingly his position. I'm not 100% sure exactly what his position is, but he's obviously important in the grand scale of the church, or at least the Pope. And in this situation, he's actually manipulated her in the way that, okay, well, you really don't want to go there. Oh, so you're afraid. And she plays right into it and kind of drags her into going into the forest, which I'm curious if that will be, again, something they'll get into as well. Is it seems as if he wanted her to be there. Like, he wanted to bring her to this location for some reason. Did he want her to see what was unfolding there? Because obviously he knew what was unfolding there, because these men that were trying to assassinate this girl were his men. So was he going to see if the deed was done? Did he want to get her involved? Did he want to show her what they were doing? I'm really curious as to if that will play out. I mean, I can say that maybe he was perhaps kind of shocked that she was able to find where they were at. Maybe he did want to go there, but he didn't actually think that he was going to find them. I'd be curious if that was something that they'll eventually get into, because again, like I said before, everything we're happening here is going to come up eventually. This is not just some random encounter. This is going to be something that will come into play later on. But yeah, they go into the forest. Eris uses her sensing ability, which again, Rudy taught him, and they mentions that to Cliff, and Cliff's once again realizing, okay, this Rudy guy is really incredible. I think like at some point she mentions that they're lost, and he's like, well, just go ahead and fly up there and you can see where the city is. And like, well, I can't do that. Well, Rudy could do that. Again, him trying to get her to play into his hands, and it's just kind of the opposite effect. This is where we get an encounter with a temple knight, a blessed child, and some assassins. And it seems like really quickly Eris realizes, these guys know we're here anyways, so we're going to have to deal with this situation somehow. At the same time, it seems like Cliff doesn't want to get involved. It was funny because when we first had this encounter, Cliff starts going off about something, and I'm like, this is some really weirdly placed exposition. Of course, later on, we realized, no, that wasn't exposition. He knew exactly what was happening. He's like, there's a blessed child there, there's a temple knight, and these guys obviously work for the Pope because they don't want her to be there. He's basically laying out to Eris, I know what happens here. I know what's going on. I don't know why he's that clear about it, but it was interesting to realize that it wasn't just exposition. He knew exactly what was going on there. He knew that these guys were working for the Pope of Milis, and, well, technically him, which does make me, again, get into me not really knowing who he is. But yeah, Eris decides to jump in there, and oh my gosh, this absolutely brutal fight. I mean, we're talking about just straight chopping people in half. Eris is like just on an absolute higher level than everybody that's in this area, just completely wiping them out with very little effort, and at the same time saving this blessed child and this temple knight. So again, it heavily implies what's going on here, as when Cliff arrives later, he ends up using the helmet of this temple knight to cover his identity. He obviously doesn't want them to know, and at the same time it kind of indicates that later on that he hired these men, as you find out later on through this little conversation with this lady, that Cliff's tutors are all dead and they were killed by some wandering demon. Now, I wonder if that was implying that there was other men that maybe Rejured later on went and cleaned up or mopped up, or if it's in talking about specifically those assassins, because it mentions specifically a demon. Again, the whole thing that Eris decides to tell them is that, oh yeah, I am Rejured, a superb. So, which is funny because if we remember, this was the point in which right before this, before she went out to Goblin Slay, it was at that point that Rudy told everybody, okay, well, go out and do stuff, but make sure when you help them, after you finish, you tell them that you are Rejured, a superb of Dead End, and that you help them. So that, again, he gets credit for it. But yeah, after Eris takes out everybody, that's when we have a very brief conversation. Again, it seems like this Temple Knight's very appreciative of Eris and what she did. Again, Eris tells her that she is reserved and that she needs to get direction out of the place, and they go decide to leave together. So, and then as they're leaving, one of the assassins is calling out saying, "Why are you with the Temple Knights? They are trying to drive out the demons. The current Pope is siding with the demons." So again, implying heavily that a current pope exists. This current pope wants to side with the demons, but then there is this blessed child, this group that is going to somehow take power, and they don't want to side with the demons. So it seems like there's a little bit of conflict there, and again, it's probably something that's going to be obviously right now where our story is with the end of season 1. We're way past this. Like, we have left this story behind. This was way back when Rudy had this argument with Paul. My assumption is that eventually we're going to see some sort of conflict happening within the church or something like that, and that's probably when we're going to actually get that kind of coming back into the fray, and this is kind of setting up things. This is where we're finding out, why does this guy kind of have some sort of interest in Rudy? Otherwise, if we didn't have this story, in like season 3, suddenly out of nowhere, this Cliff guy shows up, and he really doesn't like Rudy the moment he hears that Rudy's in front of him. Like, oh, you're Rudy. Oh, I know who you are. I don't like you. Because again, this is the guy that took his first love from him. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of comes back in the fray. But at the same time, and not that it was a significant amount of information, but at the same time, it was a nice little kind of warm up for something that will possibly be coming into the forefront later on. Because again, we don't really waste characters in the story. And as it kind of lays out at the very end, when this lady mentions to Cliff that her tutors are fallen to this demon, additionally, this will make a conflict with the Archbishop's supporters more inevitable. So there is going to be a conflict that will come up. How it's going to rope in Rudy and the rest of his team later on is the question mark. Or maybe it'll be something that, later on we could find out that there's a bulletin later on that'll be on a wall that says the Archbishop has fallen. There's a new power that has risen in Millis or something like that. It could be something as simple as that, but the Cliff as a character will probably come up to the forefront at some point, and he'll probably be the Pope at that point. So, and this will give us an idea of what that conflict was. It's really good storytelling to have something not have to always be at the forefront. We don't necessarily have to see Cliff rise to power, but it's nice to have an idea of who Cliff is before he does, so that later on, when suddenly Cliff shows up and he's actually the Pope, you're like, wow, he took over. Or he shows up and he is just a wandering traveler. You're like, whoa. Things didn't go well with Cliff, obviously. It is nice to get just a feel of a character, let their story kind of pan out, and then come back to them later and realize, okay, things didn't go well, or things did go well. I don't need to see the whole story, but it's nice to get a little bit of flavor of what's going on there. Aside from that, I didn't like the fact that Richard just kind of keeps popping up, and like him showing up at the very end saying that, I'm not with them, I'm just watching, what are you doing, kind of thing. It's of course, the first thing he brings up is, why were you trying to harm that child? It's like, yeah, that's reserved. That was reserved at that point. All he cared about was, if you're harming a child, I will kill you. Like, that is his whole driving force. So, but yeah, getting a lot of edits this episode was really fantastic. I think just having just it wasn't really long. Let's talk about 3 months now, a break from the show, having it come back and getting to have a little bit of a refresher with Eris and her goofy nature. A lot of great animation. I will admit that there was a couple of shots that were surprisingly low framed. Like, specifically when Eris goes to wash her hands after they fought the goblins. It was like one of those, like it was running at, 2 frames a second. It was like, what is going on? Why is it so slow? There was a couple of shots like that, which were a little bit concerning, but overall it looked really fantastic. The fight with Eris taking out all the assassins was really great as well. Wish we got to learn a little more about certain characters, but at the same time, like I said, I think this is like a sprinkle of information, just a sprinkle of introductions to certain characters that will probably play major roles later. Obviously, the Temple Knight is going to be important later on. This blessed child is probably going to be important later on. I love that it's keeping true to Eris's nature as well. Obviously, she sees a child. I guess, again, Rajerd and technically Eris both have that same mindset that if there's children in danger, they're going to get involved. Eris is going to get involved to help this child. If she didn't get involved, Rajerd was going to get involved. It's true to her nature. And that little smile at the very end as they're walking away was really cute to see this blessed child accept their help from Eris, and at the same time, Eris is happy that she's safe. It was really interesting to see that at some point at the very end when they kind of part ways, obviously Cliff does get this moment where he realizes he really likes Eris. Like, this is this chick that just took out these dudes. She's really powerful, and he offers his hand in marriage to her, and obviously she rejects it. She's like, absolutely not. Not gonna happen. And he makes the assumption of, obviously, that, oh, you're after Rudy. Like, obviously this guy that is your tutor, this guy that's really incredible that you keep talking about, is the one you really do want. And it was nice that you see like this moment where she's just talking on and on about him, and he realizes that she has this very happy look on her face. Immediately realizing, I cannot defeat this guy. She is emphatic about him. And again, I think that's going to come into play later as he realizes, okay, I can't have her. She wants him. It's just a very brief shot of what looks like, I guess, his interpretation of what Rudy looks like. Obviously, he's going to be older than her. He's her tutor. He obviously has to be older. So it gives this brief shot of looking at her, very happy, walking along his side, and she's out of his reach. I just thought it was interesting to have that, it go out of its way to kind of interpret this kind of image of what he thinks Rudy looks like, despite the fact that we all know what he's just, in comparison to Eris, very younger. But yeah, overall, fantastic. Really enjoyed it. Getting more Eris is great. Additionally, getting more Mushoku Tensei in general is fantastic. Sadly, this is all we're going to be getting for quite a while. We do have an announcement for a second season. We just don't know when it's coming. My assumption is that it's going to be fall at the earliest, but that is my hope. That is my hope. I don't necessarily see that coming to fruition. I'm going to set my expectations to winter 2023. I honestly don't think it's going to happen this year, but they did announce it. We do know it's coming. Yes, they did state at the very beginning they were going to do a full adaptation of the whole thing, but things happen. Businesses can cancel things. Just because they announce that they're going to do a full adaptation doesn't mean they have to. They can stop if they don't make money. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoy this video. As always, if you like this video, hit that like button down below, comment, let me know about the episode, subscribe if you haven't already, share this video if you can, support us on Patreon, I'll throw a tips link in the description below. We definitely appreciate it, but it does. And y'all take care.